All right, guys, so we started this yesterday, and now you're just going to check it. You're going to have a test either Thursday or Friday, just depending on how it falls. So make sure that you go through and you check all of this. You're going to turn this in for a participation grade. If you have everything copied, you get a free 100. Okay, so describe the slopes of parallel lines. They have the same slopes, so they're the exact same number, but the y-intercept is different. Now, the slopes of perpendicular lines, these are called opposite reciprocals, which means sign for opposite and flip fraction for reciprocal. Okay, so now which line is parallel to the line 5x minus 2y equals 18? First off, I'm going to box that they want parallel, and I'm going to have to solve this for y equals. So the first thing that I'm going to do is move the x by changing the sign. That gives me negative 2y equals negative 5x plus 18. And then I divide by the number in front of y. Okay, negative 5 divided by negative 2 is positive 5 over 2x, and 18 divided by negative 2 is negative 9. So now all I have to look at is the slope, and the slope is 5 over 2, and in order to be parallel, it needs to be the same. So I know A is not my answer, or B, because the fraction's the wrong direction, and therefore D is not my answer because I need it to be positive. It's got to be the exact same, so it has to be C. Okay, moving to the next one, which line is perpendicular to the line y equals negative 3x plus 2? Okay, so since we're talking perpendicular, we need opposite reciprocals, which means I'm going to take the m, which is negative 3, and to make it perpendicular, we're going to change it to positive, and we're going to flip its fraction to 1/3. So I need to find the slope that has 1/3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the x, I'm going to move the x by changing the sign. Okay, that gets rid of it right there. And now I have y by itself, and this m is negative 3, which I want 1/3. Okay, so again, I'm going to move the x by changing the sign. And then I have to divide by the number in front of y, which will give me y equals, this would be 8 minus 1/3 x. Okay, the slope on this one is negative 1/3, but I want a positive 1/3, so that's not my answer. Okay, I'm going to move the x by changing the sign, so minus 3x, and then there's a negative 1 here, so I have to divide by the number in front of y, so we're dividing by negative 1, and that gives me negative 5 plus 3x, so my slope on this one is 3. Well, I'm wanting 1/3, not 3, so it has to be D, so we just need to check our work. We're going to move the x by changing the sign. Then we're going to divide by that number in front of y, and that gives me y equals negative 1 plus 1/3 x. The slope on this one is 1/3. Since the slope is 1/3, that is what I am looking for. D is my answer. For number 5, write an equation that is parallel to y equals negative 4x plus 5 and passes through the point, negative 2, negative 1. So if we want parallel, we want the slope to be the same, and the slope in this is negative 4. So we're going to use this and this point, and we're going to plug in the point slope formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so we're going to do y minus the y1 is negative 1 equals the m is negative 4 times x minus, and the x1 is negative 2. Remember, we don't work with double negatives, so that first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my double negatives and make them a positive. And now I'm ready to distribute and solve the problem. So negative 4 times x is negative 4x, and negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Bring down y plus 1 equals, and we're going to subtract the 1. This gives me y equals negative 4x, and I'm going to have minus 9. Okay, when we're writing an equation that is perpendicular, we need the opposite reciprocal. Well, I don't even know what m is yet to get perpendicular m. So I'm going to pull this 3x minus 5y equals 5, and I'm going to solve for y. We're going to subtract 3x. That gives me negative 5y equals negative 3x plus 5. And then we're going to divide by negative 5 every single thing. So this gives me a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and I can't take 3 and put it in 5 groups. So positive 3/5 x, and then 5 divided by negative 5 would be negative 1. So my slope is 3/5, but I want the perpendicular slope, which means opposite reciprocal. So I want this to be negative 5/3. Okay, so when I solve this problem, we're going to do y minus, and the y1 is negative 14 equals negative 5/3 times x minus, and x1 is 9. Again, the first thing I'm going to do is fix that double negative. Oh, my pen. There we go. And now I'm just going to distribute and solve. Negative 5/3 times x is negative 5/3 x. And then negative 5/3 times negative 9 will be a positive. This is 45 divided by 3 would be 15. I bring down y plus 14 equals. I'm going to subtract the 14, and I get y equals negative 5/3 x plus 1. Okay, now for the next one, you're going to be using your calculator. So I would make sure that you clear its memory. And to clear its memory, we just do second plus 712. Okay, so the number of students enrolled at Beach Manor Preschool during previous years is given in the table below. Use the line of best fit to predict the number of students enrolled in 2010. Okay, now remember, to do this in your calculator, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go stat and then edit. So I'm going to hit stat, which is 2 over from the green alpha, and I'm going to hit enter on edit. You're going to put all your x's in L1, and remember x's are the first row, and then y's in L2, and you have to type them as they are. So 1984, enter. 1987, enter. 1990, 1993, 1996, 1999, and 2002. And then I go over to L2 and I'm putting 39, 45. Oh, I hit a wrong button. Sorry. 45, 52, 61, 72, 78, and 85. Make sure your two columns are even. And you're going to press stat, and you're going to go over to calculate, and we're going to go down to number 4. So this would be a linear regression. I need you to take 3 decimal places, all right? So we did stat edit, we did L1, L2, and then we're going to do stat calc number 4. Okay. And then I want 3 decimal places. So this is going to be y equals 2.66, and then that becomes a 7 when I round. Keep x minus 5252.952. So the fourth 6 makes the third 6 go to a 7, and then the 3 doesn't change the 2 in that decimal. So now, since they want me to get how many students are in 2010, 2010 is years, which means they gave me x. So we're doing 0.667 times 2010 minus 5252.952. And we're going to just use our calculator for this. And that gives me 107.718. Okay, since we're talking about students, we're going to approximately have 108 students, because students can't be partial, so I'm going to round this up. And there's my answer. Okay, I'm going to flip over. We're going to do the exact same thing for problem number 8. I'm going to, again, clear my calculator, because that will clear out the y equals. And so when I go stat edit, I can just type my information in again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then in L2, 95, 92, 89, 88, 86, and 84. I make sure my 2 columns are lined up, which they are. Okay, so I'm going to stat calc going down to 4. Hit calculate 3 decimal places. So this is y equals negative 2.11, and the 2 keeps the 4 the same, then x. And since b doesn't have 3 decimal places, you just keep what it has, 96.4. Okay, and they want me to use the line of best fit for Luke's score for week 12. Well, week is x, so negative 2.114 times 12 plus 96.4. So here we go, negative 2.114 times 12 plus 96.4. And I get about 71.032. And since all the other scores are whole numbers, I'm going to go ahead and round that to 71. And I'm going to put points or score because that's what we're talking about here. Okay, now for your word problems, we're going to omit number 10 and number 11. We're not going to do those. Y'all didn't see them like that, so we're not going to do them like that. Marianne is printing pictures from her recent trip to Europe. An online print shop charges 15 cents per 4x6, along with a flat rate shipping of $3. If Marianne has 35 to spend, how many prints can she order? Okay, so we know that it is 15 cents per print. It's $3 no matter what, and she has a total of 35 bucks. Okay, so this is going to be y equals mx plus b because they give me a rate of change and they give me a starting spot. So all I got to do is plug in my formula, 0.15x plus 3, because the x goes with the how much it costs per item. And then I just plug in, if I have a total of 35 to spend, that's not x, so I put 35 in y spot. And then I just solve for x because I want to see how many prints I can do. So I'm going to subtract 3. That gives me 33 equals 0.15x. I'm going to divide by 0.15. And that gives me 220 prints. Okay. Oh, wait. Mrs. Henson can't do her math right. Let's fix this really quick. When I subtract 3, that gives me 32. I apologize. And so when I do this, 32 divided by 0.15, that gives me 213.3 repeating, which means I can only have 213 prints because I don't have enough money to get up to the 14. Okay, sorry. All right, now moving to 12. Elena is selling wreaths and poinsettias for her chorus fundraiser. Wreaths are $27 each and poinsettias cost $20 each. If she sold 15 poinsettias and made $543, how many wreaths did she sell? Okay, so we're talking about two things. We have an X, we have a Y. I'm going to call X wreaths and Y poinsettias. Okay, I know wreaths are $27 and I know poinsettias are $20. She sold 15 poinsettias and we don't know how many wreaths, and we have a total of $543. So when you set this formula up, this is the AX plus BY equals C. This is standard form. We don't know how many X's there are, so we just leave X. Plus, we do know that it's $20 for a poinsettia, and there's 15 of them, and it equals C. Since I don't know how many X's there are, I know that they cost 27 bucks. So 27X plus 20 times 15 equals C would be 543, the total. So now you just have to work your math. So 20 times 15 gives me 300. So I have 27x plus 300 equals 543. I'm going to subtract 300, and that gives me 27x equals 243. And then I divide by 27, and that gives me 9 And since we're talking about finding how many wreaths, that would be 9 wreaths. Okay, moving to the next one. So a quick review on some direct variation. When you're doing direct variation, this is a special relationship, and where there is a constant ratio. One second, guys. Okay, so sorry, had somebody walk in really quick. So direct variation is a special relationship in which there's a constant ratio, and it's always of y over x. You always put y on the top. Okay, the equation of direct variation is written as y equals kx. K is being your constant, okay, and then x is just what we plug in. Now, what does this mean b always equals? So usually we see y equals mx plus b. Well, there's no b here, so b always equals 0. Now, to identify the constant and equation of the order pairs below, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take y and put it over x and see if you do have a constant change. So we're going to take 6 over 12 and we're going to simplify that. And that simplifies to 1/2. We're going to take 4 over 8 and we're going to simplify, which is 1/2. We're going to take 7 over 14, which simplifies to 1/2. And we're going to take -3 over -6, which simplifies again to 1/2. So therefore, you do have a constant, so your constant is 1/2. So now to get your equation, you just plug this equation in up here, and we have y equals, oh, not k, I'm sorry, 1/2 x. We're plugging in k. Okay, for this number 16, which is their number 4, determine which equations below represent direct variation, and if they do, identify the constant of variation. Okay, so first thing, remember, in order for an equation to be direct variation, it must go through 0, 0, the origin. So that means b must equal 0. Okay, so this is y equals kx, which means there's no b. So yes, this is, it represents direct variation, and your constant is 4, whatever number is with x. Okay, so for this one, y equals -5. There's no x in this, so therefore, no, this is not direct variation. This would just be if I had a graph, I would go down here to -5, and my line would go across like this. So I'm not going through the origin. Okay, for C, we need to solve for y equals, so we're going to move the x by changing the sign. And then we're going to divide by the number in front of y, so I get y equals, this is -1 divided by -3, which would be positive 1/3 x, and then 0 divided by -3 just cancels off. So therefore, this one is going through 0, so this is a yes, and my constant is 1/3. Okay, what point does direct variation always have to pass through? Well, I just went over this. It always has to pass through 0, 0. And now, if you're given order pairs that represent direct variation, find the missing value. This is just a proportion. You're going to take y and put it over x, so 16 over -4, and set it equal to the other side of y over x, and you're going to cross multiply. So 4 times -52, oh, sorry, -4 is 208. And 16 times x is 16x. So then all you have to do is divide by 16, and x equals 13. All right, we got one more page. Okay, so 19. Which graph represents the solution to the inequality 2x minus y greater than or equal to -3? Well, the first thing you're going to need to do is get this in y equals. So we're going to move the x by changing the sign. That gives me -1y is greater than or equal to -2x minus 3. And I'm going to divide by -1. When you divide by a negative, don't forget you must flip the inequality. And so -2 divided by -1 is +2. And -3 divided by -1 is +3. Now that y is by itself, you read your inequality. This would be a solid line. So I'm going to actually throw away d and b right away. And we should be shading, since it's now less than, we should shade below. So if you look, both the lines are in the same spot. They just shaded a different area. So you want to make sure you get the below, which is A. Okay, moving to number 20, it says which inequality is shown on the graph? Well, since this is a straight across line, you need to look to see which axis it's crossing. Well, this is the x-axis and this is the y. So it's crossing y and it's crossing it at 3. And then it's shaded below. So below would be a less than. So I'm going to get rid of A and B right away because that's not the letter I crossed at. And then I'm going to figure out which inequality is correct, which is C. Okay, so in the graph of y is less than or equal to x, which quadrant is completely shaded? So they want to know which one is totally shaded. There's nothing left off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write what m equals and what b equals. All right, so finishing this up, we got 2 more problems. So I need to know what m is and what b is. Remember this, whatever's with x is m, so m is 1. I like it as a fraction, so over 1. And since there's not a plus or a minus, that means b is 0. So we're going to start right in the middle at 0, 0, and we're going to go up 1, right 1, until we have all of our points, and then we're going to go down 1, left 1. This would be a solid below line. So I'm going to draw a solid line in here, and I'm going to shade below. And now I want to know which quadrant is completely shaded. So remember the quadrants make a C. So this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the quadrant that's fully shaded is quadrant D. Okay, one more problem. Which order pair is a solution to the linear inequality given below? Use the graph to determine. Well, the first thing we're going to have to do is get y by itself. You can never graph until y is by itself. So bring down the 4y greater than or equal to negative 3x plus 20. And we're going to divide by that 4. Since we're dividing by a positive 4, the inequality does not flip, and that gives me negative 3/4 x plus 5. So I start my graph up 5, and I'm going to go down 3, right 4, down 3, right 4. And then I flip up 3, left 4. This again is a solid line, but since it's a greater than, I shade above. So I'm going to draw in my solid line. I want to shade above. So now I check my points. Is negative 5, 1, that's not in the shaded. 0, negative 3, not in the shaded. Negative 4, negative 2, not in the shaded. And then 2 is in the shaded. So D is my answer. Okay. Make sure that you've copied all of this. This is going to be that free 100.